So that brings us to our final piece, and that is functionality. What functionality is included within the controller that we don't need to use a DAW for? And that's one of the reasons that drew me to this controller in the first place, was this chord mode. And I wanted to be able to plug this into my Nord because I use the Nord Stage 3 as my main keyboard. And I wanted something where I could just play one note, send that to a separate MIDI channel to my Nord on a different layer, and play just a pad sound with a chord. On the Nord, I can set latch, and so I could just play the chord, play another chord, right? As I'm playing piano on the Nord Stage 3. Having that would just give me a little bit more functionality to my overall live setting. I play the Nord Stage 3 in church a lot, and there's a lot of times where I want to have a pad in the background, but I don't want it to follow every note I'm playing on the piano, and I don't want it to be just a sustaining drone note. So I wanted something in between, and my hope is that I could use this and the features that come with the controller itself to accomplish that. So let's start with the arpeggiator. I'm gonna go over and turn on my synth sound. So this is a synth sound without any arpeggiation, and it's got a little bit of arpeggiation to it already, right? But if I play two together, there's no movement between. It's just oscillating on that single note that I'm playing, right? So if I turn Arpeggiator on, and then I play that, now we get a faster oscillation of that. And if I play three notes together, now it's cycling between the notes, right? As I mentioned, you can use the knobs to change the parameters of the arpeggiator, or we can hold Shift and go into the edit mode by tapping on the ARP button. Now we've got 4 options, and we can cycle through them with this rotary knob here. Actually, we have 5 because of the split. We've got the type, and if you want to move down to be able to select what type, tap, and then you can scroll through the types. Now, all of these, type, octave, gate, and swing, are all up here in our knobs. So if I go back, and then let's say I'm going to just turn on the lock ARP knobs. So now, as I twist these, I can switch between the arpeggiating types, the octaves, the gate, and the swing. So moving on to chord mode, I'm going to switch over to the mini grand, and let's turn chord mode on. I'm going to have to turn the arpeggiator off. There we go. I'm going to bring back some of that mix on the room. So right now, if I hold Shift and go to edit, it's going to ask me if I want to edit chord or scale mode. We're going to go into chord, and right now it's on smart. We could choose between smart and custom. We've got the key, which is in C right now, the type, which we've got as major, and then the voicing, which is a 1-3-5 chord, which is 1-3-5, right? So it's always going to do that. If I turn the chord mode off and play those same 1-3-5s, turn chord mode on. So a little bit easier to play than having to play the whole chord. Now a nice feature here is that I can hold Shift and I can change the key. Let's say I want to go to F. So now it's playing those chords and it's getting the right voicing for the key that I'm in. I could also go hold Shift and change my voicing to maybe a 1-3-5-7. And then we could also change this to maybe a minor key. So really quick, without diving into the edit menu, we can change some of the voicings there. You have the ability to do custom chord voicings as well, where you play the chord you want, and then that takes over. Again, I'll go into details on each of these functions in later videos where I can spend more time diving in. Let's go ahead and turn off chord mode and double tap to turn scale mode on. So what scale is going to do is it's going to lock the notes you're playing into a certain scale. There's a lot of different scales here, and right out of the box, mine was set to a pentatonics major scale, which has a weird series of notes. It's not what you would typically expect when you go into this. So let's go into the edit, hold Shift and hit edit. twist over and go to scale. So right now we can choose the key, and then if we scroll over, we can choose a scale, which is a pentatonics major right now, and then we can choose the split of that as well. Let's go in here, and we've got a lot of different scales to choose from. Let's say we go with a chromatic, which is, a chromatic is every single note. So essentially it's not gonna lock anything. But let's change from chromatic to a major. So it does double up the note rather than silencing the note. So if I'm playing a chord, I can hit some of the sharper flats, and because I'm in the key of C major, it's gonna snap those notes to the closest note. So I'm in the key of E here, and I'm playing a E minor right now, A minor, if you don't wanna play any sharps or flats. But let's go and turn that off and then play those same ones. And then to play it the way that it should sound, so I have to actually play the sharps and flats to get the key of E there. So again, if you're just starting out, maybe learning how to play piano, or you don't play piano, you play something else, but you wanna get some of those in there, you can use chord mode or scale mode. Makes it really easy to play the right notes. And then finally over here on the tempo, we can hold that, and it brings up our menu where we can change it from internal to external. I can go back. If I tap that, I can change the tempo with this rotary knob here, select, or I can tap, and that brings in the tempo. It flashes a light to let me know what my tempo is. So if I drop this down, go real slow here, now my light is blinking slower than it was before. So I like this, especially if I'm playing live and I've got maybe an intro. I can dial in the tempo of that intro and make sure that I'm starting that song off in the right tempo. Again, to exit a menu, you just hit back and it goes right back to it. The last thing I want to talk about is how to change or customize the notes or the parameters behind the controls without having to go into the computer to preset editor. We can do this all from the controller itself. To customize a control, you're gonna wanna be in preset mode. Now, if your button's lit up, that means you're in DAW mode. Just tap that button to go to preset, and then hold Shift and click that button again, which is gonna bring up the edit menu. Here we can scroll between editing preset and editing DAW mode. We're gonna edit preset, and we're gonna press down. Now, what we can do is we can move or press any control, and the screen is gonna change to that control. So pad 9, so 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. We've got the knobs, we've got the key bed itself, and if we can scroll through here, we can see our aftertouch there. We've got the modulation, pitch. So we have the ability to change the parameters behind any of the controls here on the keyboard. So what we can do is let's just go to pad 9, for example, and I'll talk through a couple of the controls and then I'll go to the keys and talk about those. So we have a few options or parameters when we tap on this control in the edit menu. We've got the actual MIDI channel that this is gonna send a communication out to. So here it's on global, so that's gonna take whatever channel is set in the global settings. But we could go and say maybe this bottom row here we wanna send to channel 2, and then the top row we could set to channel 3, or you could set each pad to a different channel itself. However you wanna set your sounds up that way. We're gonna leave this on global. Move over and we have 2 color options. So the first color parameter, color 1, is the color that displays without touching the button. In this case, it's red. We could scroll through these and the color is gonna change as I scroll through them. So maybe we change this to magenta. And then color 2 is the color when we tap on the pad itself. So we could select, maybe you could go off, we could go, let's go blue. And what I'm doing to move between the 2 lines in the display is just tapping down on the rotary encoder, moves our selector from the top row to the bottom row and allows us to select. If we hit back, then that sets our value, or we can set the value by just tapping down on the rotary encoder itself. So either way, you can move back and forth. To get back, you just press the back button. The last option we can choose is the method that we're communicating. So in this case, this is gonna trigger a MIDI note. And so we could tap this, we could tap on note, and we could choose the note that we want to send. We can tap again, choose the note for this pad. Here we could also choose whether the latch is on or off for this specific pad. Latch means when you press it, it stays on until you turn latch off using this button here. We can also define the note on and off values. So the minimum and maximum value in this case would be the velocity of that note. So we could say we never want it to go over 100 for our value on the max, and we could set 50 as the low limit. And we could actually, when we tap it, it's never gonna be less than 50 and never gonna be more than 100 when we're tapping that. So you have the ability to customize that as well. If we go back, instead of note, we could have this send maybe a CC message, a program change message. There's a bunch of different ways to customize these. So on program, you could go in, you could select the program, MSB or LSB parameters, depending on what you're trying to do with this customization, then you can choose the value for that here on the screen. So maybe this is gonna trigger a new sound selection. You could set up your pads to change and trigger those programs. To go back, we could go to, again, to CC, and we could choose the CC that gets sent on the press or the release. Could go back and let's take a look at the keys themselves. So go into the edit menu again, and then we're gonna press a key. So now we're in the customization for the key bed. We've got 4 different zones we could set up. So we could split our keyboard up into various zones. We could turn that on here, and we could define the zone values. We could define the octave, the transpose for those zones, even programs. There's a lot of customization that we can do around the zones. Talk more about that in a future video as I get more into the details of that. Again, on a 25 key, it really is hard to split that up into multiple zones because there's not a lot of playability once you do that. After the zones, we get to the aftertouch settings. So we could change the channel, the MIDI channel that the aftertouch is sending out on. And then we can also set the minimum and the maximum values for the aftertouch itself. So let's say it's a filter value on an instrument in our DAW, and we want the filter value to start at 50 and end at 100. So we want it to jump right to 50 as soon as we trigger that aftertouch. We could go here and we could set our minimum to 50. And then when we trigger the aftertouch, it's gonna jump right to 50 and go to 100 rather than starting at 0. It's gonna give us a faster response on our cutoff for that synth sound. Again, how you use this is up to you. You may have a completely different use than the one I just described, but I wanted to show you how to get to that because here is where you can really start to tailor this keyboard to you. And honestly, you don't even have to jump into the software to customize the controls. You can build all of that. And what you're gonna wanna do is if you hold on the preset button and scroll over, there are custom preset modes. So before you make any customizations, jump to one of these. There's a whole bunch of them here. Jump to one of those and build your custom preset on that custom preset there. If you build it on, I was showing you in this example, I was actually on one of these presets. I don't remember which one it was at the moment. It might have been boom. It would change the boom preset that's saved in the controller. So we don't want to overwrite what is there for some of the preset virtual instrument setups that come with it, unless you want to. It's totally up to you. But that's how you change and customize your programs. And again, you can save that to the user-defined slot there. So that's all for now. I hope this video has been helpful for you. I know it's been a long one, so thanks for bearing with me as I've gone through the different areas of this controller. I've spent a lot of hours on this and have learned a lot as I've started to use this, as I used it in the recording session last weekend. And then as I've been using it to make these videos, this is actually the 4th time trying to make this in-depth review because each time I go to make it, I learn something new and I want to give you guys the most accurate representation of this controller and of what it can do so that you guys, when you go to purchase this or use it, are not expecting it to do something different than it actually does. If you've got questions, throw them in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer them. Stay inspired and keep making that music.